Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of GTA Fancast with me, Gully, reviewing the Midlands derby at the weekend, in which both teams, I would suggest, kind of cancelled each other out, and what was reflected fairly on the scoreline with a 1-1 draw. Obviously, I think best place to start is kind of understanding how both teams really cancelled each other out. And if I go to my digital tactics board as it is now, very quickly, I can explain what I mean by that. Now, with Wolves in possession, I think essentially both teams looked in and insisted upon having kind of a numerical advantage defensively at all times. And you can see straight away Villa, what might have been called a 4-4-2 when it was in possession, dropped very much into a kind of defensive six almost, with Matty Cash and John McGinn really kind of tracking the Wolves wing backs very high, leaving 2v2, two midfielders and two strikers to kind of transition if they get the opportunity. But obviously, as I've suggested as well, Wolves were really intent on making sure we weren't left short in other areas of the pitch as well. So what ended up happening with us defensively, if I just kind of quickly bring into an Aston Villa possession phase, we sat in our defensive five. John McGinn tended to play quite narrow within the midfield area. But straight away you can see again, unable to really make too many inroads unless you started to get the fullbacks pushing on. I think generally speaking, Villa like to sit in a back three with Consa, Diego Carlos and Pau Torres. Digne offered a little bit of width down the left-hand side as John McGinn tended to tuck in. But ultimately, both teams very insistent on making sure they weren't able to be transitioned against, and allowing plenty of coverage and not committing too many men forward. So I can kind of exemplify that by a couple of shots here of the game state, and you see a quite distinct back six there for Villa, with the two midfielders and the two strikers in position to kind of go and apply pressure to the ball. But you can see Emery very much a stickler for making sure that his team aren't caught short out of possession. And then if you look at it the other side, Wolves again, distinct back five, with Totti kind of allowed to go tight to Moussa Diaby at every opportunity he could. Mateus Cunha is the only one that's kind of slightly out of shot here. I struggled to get a good view of the entire team in one image. But with a game like that, I think you're likely to have chances few and far between. It was feisty. There was plenty of duels, plenty of tackles, plenty of fouls as well. And I think as a result, ultimately, it was just individual quality that might have created any opportunities, and that's where the goals came from. Really, it was Pedro Neto, obviously using his pace down the flank against Pau Torres, which got Wolves the opening goal, and then from a set piece situation, which will disappoint Wolves as well. I think Ollie Watkins' cross was really really tempting, obviously, to be attacked to the back post by Pau Torres. And that was it that kind of decided the game, until obviously the red card changed the flow of it a little bit. The one thing I noticed about Villa is that they're very condensed from back to front, and they like to keep a high line. And you can see that straight away in this image here. Now, obviously, that's with the idea of kind of condensing the pitch, so the gaps between their defensive shape is really tight. You're not, covering large distances when you need to go and press, and there isn't space to play in for the attacking side within the pockets as well. But as you can see, they're caught probably about, 35, 40 yards from goal there. There's plenty of space in behind to exploit, and this was the only situation, I think, where Wolves got anywhere near doing it. I think it's something that we lack within the team at the moment. There isn't a player, having had Ruben Neves at the club, who is probably the greatest exponent we've had ever of that raking long pass, and is able to really take advantage of these kind of situations. We haven't got anybody who's an expert in clipping the ball in behind, being accurate, making sure that the passes are run through to the goalkeeper and whatnot. Hwang possibly could have done with taking this into his stride immediately, rather than letting it bounce and maybe getting in on goal. But in a game where Villa were offering us the opportunity to get in behind, we didn't really take advantage of it. And maybe it was calculated based on the fact that Kilman, Dawson, and Totti aren't brilliant at finding those kind of passes. But the one thing I would like to point out about the way we attacked, especially from wide, and I touched on this last week when we scored the goals against Man City. There's a narrative building about someone like Mateus Cunha who I'll say this myself. I haven't necessarily been enamoured by some of his movement around the box and stuff, but I think a lot of it is starting to become quite calculated and quite coached in terms of the way we attack the ball from wide areas. This was a situation in the first half when Ryan Nouri kind of swept one towards goal and just put it wide, and you can see to attack. Obviously, that one across the face of the goalkeeper, where the ball is probably at its most dangerous, but also ensuring we have that kind of second wave coming in from behind if the ball gets cleared. As I said, Villa looking to be numerically superior in they're going to be able to clear the ball, crossing from wide. It's a bit scattergun when you look at it. You go back to the Luton game where we defended really well with 10 men, putting a ridiculous amount of crosses into the box. We dealt with it really well. So ensuring you kind of, even if the first ball isn't won, you're there for the second ball, and that's how we scored the winner against Man City. But another situation here, this was on the goal itself actually. Hwang, despite being outnumbered again, obviously Neto gets his yard to get a crossing and enters the penalty area. He's the one in the penalty area and obviously gets on the end of it. But you've got a couple of players backing up, so if there is a clearance out to the edge of the box, or there is an opportunity for a cutback as well, then they're in to kind of take advantage of that situation. Talking of a cutback, obviously there was another scenario where Sasha Kalajdzic had come on. Again, you can see Hwang, he'd already made his run at this point for that ball across the face of goal, but now decided this time to pull it back to Sasha Kalajdzic, who should have done better when he came onto it and put the ball on target, really. So I think maybe we need to consider a little bit more about the way we expect our strikers to behave in these kind of situations. It doesn't necessarily matter who it is that's making those runs. Obviously, Hwang is the one who's got that more natural instinct in front of goal, as has been shown. Cunha is someone who could do with developing that side of his game, but it's also instructional in terms of how Gary O'Neill wants his teams to arrive into the box and attack the box as well. So maybe cut him a little bit of slack, Cunha, if he isn't necessarily getting into goal scoring positions based on balls not quite landing in the right spaces and whatnot. But the other thing I wanted to touch on was the impact of Boubacar Traore. We know he's going to be likely to come into the team now with Mario Lemina suspended, but I thought just as a standalone performance, this was a really promising one. He's done well whenever he's come onto the pitch this season, but if you look at the way he played on Sunday in context of Lemina and Gomez I thought had a quiet game compared to how he's played up until this point this season. But Traore straight away getting into the thick of it, had almost as many touches from significantly less minutes on the pitch, actually made more ball recoveries than any other player on the pitch in his time on the pitch, aside from Matty Cash and Max Kilman, I think. So the entire 11s, apart from one player each side. So amazing how many loose balls he picked up. Again, pass completion was solid and actually moving the ball forward. Some of it has to do with the time within the game that he came on. I think Villa were flagging a little bit second half, maybe based on their European exertions in the week. But he really took his chance, and I think we're all looking forward to him coming into the team for Lemina against Bournemouth after the international break now. And just to kind of highlight again that period within the game which Boubacar was on, and then unfortunately, obviously Lemina getting his second yellow, we'd begun to get on top, I think. And to a certain extent, I'd say it really thwarted us actually having a bit of a grandstand finish and trying to get that winning goal. We had more shots within that period. Kalajdzic put the ball on a plate for Neto for an amazing opportunity in that one. And then obviously Kalajdzic had a chance himself as well. More touches, more pass completion, take-ons as well. And just it was a part of the game where, I thought this is where you need to capitalise on it. And unfortunately, that second yellow card just kind of stopped us in our tracks a little bit. We need to really get a lid on this. So we have been unfortunate in certain situations, but I tweeted earlier in the week that we've had more red cards since the start of last season than any other club. That discipline really needs to be managed. Some of the decision making in certain at certain points when we're on yellow cards, you don't want to have to, as a manager, feel like you need to take a player off just because he's picked up a yellow. You need to be a little bit more responsible. And there's an argument maybe Lamina was a little bit harshly treated, but I think every fan in the ground, once he saw he made that challenge, probably kind of drew breath a little bit and thought, hang on a sec, he's in trouble here. So based on that, I think we can't keep putting ourselves in difficult situations, and there are more points to be gained with 11 on the pitch than 10, obviously. So look forward to Bournemouth. Enjoy your international break, and I'll catch you all, guys, hopefully after a win down at the Vitality.